Hi, this is Brent with Sample Tools by CR2. In this video, we're going to be diving into how to create a dubstep style bass growl by artists such as Virtual Riot. So let's have a listen to the sound, and then we'll basically reverse engineer this preset and start from the beginning. Now, the majority of what is actually going on here is mainly modulation, and what gives it that really deep sound is actually the wavetables that we use specifically here. So let's go ahead and create an initialized preset, and this is our starting bass. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is you want to load up both of the oscillators, and you want to tune these down. And this really depends on the MIDI information that you have in your DAW, because I could pitch this MIDI note further down and then vice versa. I wouldn't have to pitch these as low. So it just depends on the part that you already have. Okay, so next you want to go into these spectral waveforms here and specifically use any of the Reese Mess wavetables, because these are basically Reese bass style and they're usually very wide wavetables and they're used for bass. So any of these will do. Let's use 1 and let's use 3 because I believe that's what I used before. And we want to pull the level of both of these down, and the reason for that is it's going to be modulated by our LFO here. Okay, so let's draw in the LFO shape for this. So first of all, let's take it out of off mode and set it into trigger. That means it's triggered every time a new MIDI mode is re-triggered. And let's basically draw in this pattern here. So we have like a sort of like a equilateral triangle almost with 2 breakpoints. We have a slight curve between them like this. Let's add a smaller triangle at the end here. And reduce the amplitude on this one so it doesn't die off too much at the end. There's probably some of these that we can use here, or you could download these online, I'd imagine. But if you want to draw your own, this is a rough idea of what we can expect. Let's change the rate to half just so it doesn't cycle through this too quickly. And let's apply this to the levels now of each of the oscillators. Let's have a listen to what we have now. So we've got that fundamental movement happening, which is what we're looking for. We're also going to apply the same thing to the wavetables. And now what you can do is just move around the wavetable position and the levels to taste. We're going to introduce some FM synthesis, and we're going to use a bend warp marker from oscillator B, which is going to be triggered by oscillator A. Same thing again, let's apply our LFO. And again, we can always just blend these in. And let's head into our filters. And we want to use one of the multi-stage filters because they have a lot of interesting breakpoints. Let's use a high pass because we don't need any high information for oscillator A and B, because we're going to bring in and introduce a sub oscillator. So we want to keep these quite clean because we're going to be doing a lot of saturation and upwards compression. So let's use a high pass 12 with a fairly moderate steep envelope to it. And let's put both A and B into this. And let's boost up the resonance. And let's drop that LFO onto the cutoff. I'm also going to increase the drive here. Okay, and like I just said before we introduce the filter, let's bring in a sub-oscillator. And we want this to go direct out, which is very important so it's not affected by the high-pass filter. Okay, let's have a listen to where we're at now. Great. You can also play around with the different wavetables and oscillators here if you like, but the sine wave is the most fundamental and pure, so I'm going to leave it on sine wave for now. Okay, let's head into the effects and let's introduce some hyperdimension to increase some of the width. I'll leave the unison voices and the hyper section. Let's add some distortion, and I'm just going to keep it quite simple, but drive it more. Let's introduce some chorus and some compression. Let's turn on the multiband. Okay, let's hear what we have now. Awesome. Now we can keep adding this with further spatial effects, but this is completely up to you. But this is a good starting point here. So once you've got to this stage, you can start to play around with stuff like the levels primarily of the modulated controls here inside of the main panel. So I'm going to do some tweaking and just mess around with the wavetable positions and the levels most importantly. If we pan each waveform, we get a little bit more stereo separation as well, which is another nice way to just increase the sort of Haas effect that we can achieve here with the oscillators. So for what sounds like a complicated patch, it's actually quite simple. It's mostly modulation, and really what's doing all of the work here is the Reese wavetables and the LFO1, which is doing all of our modulation. So you could continue to go a little bit further with this in the effects and do some more modulation in the matrix here, but that's completely up to you. So this is a good starting base for a sort of dubstep rhythm growl.